My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And today the name of our show is Clean Water Compliance Financing, and I have as my guest Superintendent Richard Lanyon. Richard has a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Illinois, and he's well known throughout our nation as one of the experts in treating wastewater. And today Dick is going to explain to us all about Clean Water Act, the last 35 years, and the future of it. Dick, I'm glad you're on our show.
Thank you, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you know, the first question I want to ask you is that under the Clean Water Act, billions have been spent over the last 35 years for cleaning up our nation water, yet our rivers continue to be impaired. Why?
Well, Frank, it's a long story. And when the Clean Water Act was put into effect in 1972, the major problems in our rivers was oil, high organic waste, and visible pollution. So with the Clean Water Act, there was a permit program established called the National Pollution Elimination System, and also money was provided through a construction grants program to finance the construction of treatment plants, because most of the cities and towns in those days didn't have the treatment plants that we have today. And that was believed to be the majority of the problem. So with the construction grant financing, a lot of progress was made in the 1970s and 80s. But then the construction grant program was phased out, and it was replaced by a state revolving fund loan program financed by the federal government.
A loan versus a grant.
Right. Now that's where the recipients of the loans had to pay it back, but the interest rates were very favorable.
Yes. And
a lot of progress continued under the state revolving fund loan program.
Well, but yet they have a transportation funding program.
Well, it could be compared with that, yes.
Yeah.
Now, however, federal funding has been slacking off. Back in the 70s and 80s, we were spending about 3% of our gross national product on infrastructure. Currently, we're only down to about 1.5%. So our infrastructure is suffering.
Yeah, it's half the funding.
Right. Well, in the 1990s, with the cleanup of some of those nasty problems of high organic waste and oils and so forth in our rivers, other pollutants came to the forefront. And today, impairments are caused by nutrients.
The nutrients?
Yes, for the most part. And it's no longer the point sources. It's not the discharge from municipalities, but it's now urban stormwater and rural stormwater and agricultural drainage. That's the principal cause of impairments in our nation's waters.
Have they ever made a study on the percentage of point source and non-point source?
Well, that's changed over the years with the control of the point sources.
Yes.
Today, about 40% of our rivers remain to be impaired, and if you look at nutrients, about 80% of the nutrient problem comes from farm drainage if you talk about nitrogen. It's less than that if you talk about phosphorus.
Yes.
But now, in controlling on-point sources, we don't have permits with discharge limits, and under the Clean Water Act, there's no authorization to implement permits for farm drainage and rural runoff. So there's really no effective enforcement for the non-point runoff.
And the Mississippi flows always down to the Gulf of Mexico, and we have a lot of nutrients going in there. Not that non-point source is going into Mississippi. And at the end of the Gulf of Mexico, we have that dead zone now.
That's correct.
And it's growing. Every year it grows, that dead zone.
Right, right. And that's the federal government has been studying that for over a dozen years. They've suggested guidelines for states to reduce the nutrient discharges, but there's been no enforcement program, and so there's been little progress made in reducing nutrients.
Now, how can the Clean Water Act be changed to solve and finance the cleanup of non-point source? As you mentioned, non-point source is a large contributor to the quality of water.
Well, I'm not sure that we can change the Clean Water Act effectively. Currently, we're trying to address agricultural and rural stormwater through incentives in the Farm Bill, but that's not a regulatory program and it lacks enforcement, so it's a voluntary program. Urban drainage can be controlled by permits, but generally discharge limits are not put in these permits, so that's not a very effective enforcement tool either. Both point and non-point sources in a watershed have to be looked at closely, and the sources of these contaminants have to be prioritized so that funding can be applied at the most serious problems. So I'm suggesting that we need to begin to look at these problems from a watershed standpoint.
Cover the whole area then.
Yes, yeah. Right.
And this way you could maybe see where the water is coming from and the source of it, and maybe solve that problem that way.
Correct.
How about changing the way we farm? That might be a solution. No, eliminate the pesticides, herbicides.
There's been a considerable amount of effort through the Farm Bill to provide incentives to agriculture to change some farming practices, but still, the incentive there is, you know, if you apply a little bit more fertilizer, you guarantee your crop
more
a
yield.
little better, so for higher yield, and so the farmers still have the mode to apply more fertilizer than necessary.
Now, when they pass the Farm Bill, is it for a year or is it for a number of years? I'm not familiar with how many years they pass a Farm Bill.
Well, generally, Farm Bills are no different than a lot of other legislation out of Washington. First, there's an authorization. So when they talk about authorizing the Farm Bill or the Clean Water Act, it's strictly an authorization and it doesn't include funding. Each year, Congress has to appropriate funds for these programs.
And if there's funds available, then they'll appropriate. If not, then it won't be, the funds could be cut in half.
That's correct.
Now, much of the infrastructure funding for point source under the Clean Water Act is reaching maturity. How can we provide funds for maintenance or replacement?
Well, this is a serious national problem, and as I said earlier, funding for infrastructure has been lagging. The states and local governments are stressed to make up the difference, and for instance, in Illinois, we have a shortfall of over $100 million annually in infrastructure maintenance.
100 million?
100 million. Nationally, we estimate that there's a $22 billion shortfall in infrastructure financing. So we have to go a long way to make this up. For instance, this year, the House of Representatives voted to appropriate $14 billion for the state revolving fund loan program.
Okay.
But there was no action in the Senate. So this year we're dead in the water for any funding through the state revolving fund loan program. It's been suggested that we have a trust fund for clean water, similar to the Highway Trust Fund.
There's pros and cons on trust funds.
Well, there are. But the Highway Trust Fund has proven to be successful in maintaining our highways and transit infrastructure. And we in the water business are looking at a similar trust fund. Now, for highways, you know, we pay tax on the gasoline that's used.
Very easy.
And that's a pretty straightforward way to fund that. The funding mechanism for water has been a little bit more tricky. So we're looking at, you know, taxes or fees on plumbing fixtures, products that use in the home that require water, and so forth. So the funding can be acquired through the same mechanism, that is, taxing the use of products.
How about industrial water use for industrial manufacturing facilities, the industrial industry, should they be taxed too on the amount of water they use?
Yes, they would be in the same situation by being taxed through the products they use that demand water.
And the infrastructure, the reason why for the infrastructure is probably a combination of deterioration and more compliance from the US EPA that requires them to upgrade their facilities. It comes from both sources then.
Right. Some of that is due to more stringent regulations. But, you know, a lot of the infrastructure that was built under the Clean Water Act in the 70s is 35 years old. And some of these projects are reaching their useful life and need to be either replaced or extensively rehabilitated.
Well, you know, since we're living here in Cook County, so let's talk about Metropolitan Chicago. What is the condition of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago wastewater infrastructure?
Well, we've been around for 117 years, Frank, and some of our...
you look young, Dick. You look very young.
Well, not me personally. But some of our infrastructure is pretty old. For instance, the canals we built are some of them are over 100 years old. 100 years old? Some are 80 years old. Sure. And we're doing maintenance on these systems. Some of these waterways are navigable waterways, federal waterways. So the Corps of Engineers is expending funds on maintenance for these canals. So
the district owns the canals, but the Army Corps has a jurisdiction over all the waterways throughout the United States, and the canals are one of them.
Well, yes. Let me explain that. We operate the canal system under the Code of Federal Regulations, and that's so that navigation can have the assurance of continuous use of the waterway system. Now, as you say, we own the waterways, most of them. But the navigable portion of the waterways is considered a federal interest. So the Corps of Engineers maintains those structures that serve navigation, such as the sidewalls in the bottom of the channel and any structures in the channel. The district has to maintain any of the other structures along the waterway that we've built over the years. Now, we've also built intercepting sewers, and some of those are approaching 100 years in age, and we have a continual program of inspection of these sewers and rehabilitation. Next year, we're going to begin to do the rehabilitation of a major conduit under 39th Street. It runs from the lakefront over to Racine Avenue, and that was built in the teens, so that's approaching 90 years of age. And some of our treatment plants and pumping stations were built in the 20s and 30s, so they're reaching their useful life. We've been upgrading these over the years, adding new processes as necessary to meet regulatory demands. But some of the tankage is old, and we're going to be replacing that, going to more modern designs to improve treatment efficiency. So yes, we have a lot of infrastructure, and the needs to keep it up to date are significant.
Yeah, well, I know that because we completed the deep tunnels, and the deep tunnels go into our sewer treatment plant, wastewater plant, and pumping that raw sewage out. Have to upgrade the pumping of this the wastewater out of the deep tunnel.
Right.
That's a big expenditure also.
Yes, it is. It is. And we have to look to the future. We want to be sure that our systems are sustainable, and we have adequate funding sources to keep these facilities in top operating condition.
Now, talking about funding, here we live in Cook County, and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District services all of Cook County. So how do they get their funding? As you mentioned, the government doesn't go out any more grants, and they're giving loans. So how does the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago obtain their funding?
Well, most of our funding comes through the ad valorem real estate property tax system. So that's based on the value of property, and any homeowner or business owner has a line item on their tax bill that says Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and that's provides us about 80% of our revenue.
And this is how we finance the work that we do then?
Yes. Right.
And that only 80%?
Well, yes, and now the other portion was made up by user charges on large industries that use a lot of water, and also for some tax-exempt businesses, such as the airports and the water treatment plants and hospitals and so forth, any place where they use large amounts of water.
Well, you know, I'm going to bring up a slide showing the size of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Capital Improvement Program, Dick.
Okay.
And
all right, now for our capital improvement program, we finance that through the sale of bonds, and then those bonds are retired over a period of years, so it spreads the cost of any capital improvement over time. And by doing that, it allows us to better optimize the management of our funds, and some of our income is from the interest on money in the bank. Now, yes, this graphic that's on the screen, you see we have the large gray portion there. Towards the left is what we anticipate for our future project awards, and the blue wedge is for projects that are currently under construction, and the small wedge is for purchase of land for our capital works program, and the light gray wedge is for the projects that we anticipate awarding in the next year, 2008. That's about $600 million in construction work. Our total capital program currently is valued at $2.3 billion.
$2.3 billion?
Over about the next 9 years.
9 years?
Right. And we'll be getting projects out and awarding construction contracts to carry out this program. We have, it's based on master planning at our 3 largest plants, and these are our oldest plants, the ones in most need of maintenance and rehabilitation. It's also based on our needs to rehabilitate our oldest intercepting sewers. So it's a big program. And we have authority from the Illinois General Assembly, which runs through the year 2016, to sell annually about $150 million in bonds to finance this program.
And the district has to pay it back, and they pay it back through the revenues that they collect every year from the real estate taxes.
Right.
Majority.
The property taxes go to retire the bonds.
Now, you mentioned the district is going to upgrade 3 of the largest wastewater plants in North America, and one of them is considered the largest in the world.
Yes.
And you mentioned the master plan. The master plan was planned for 40 years, and you're going to try, and the district is going to implement that over 9 years.
Correct.
9-year period of time.
That's correct.
And that's how the district looks out for the future, to make sure that the residents of Cook County could, you know, since there's no federal funding for this type of project, as you mentioned, the Clean Water Act doesn't give out any more grants anymore. It's all by loans. Now, is there anticipation of any loans, low-interest loans, provided on this?
Well, there's still some opportunities for some state revolving fund loans, but the major portion of our work will be funded through our own bond sales and financing. The master planning work was begun in the year 2000, and we selected 2040 as the planning horizon. Yes. So we are looking into the future. Yes. And as I said before, we want to be sure that our plants remain viable and efficient treaters of wastewater. We do have to meet our permits regardless of whether or not the federal government provides funds. So we want to maintain our facilities to meet all their permits into the future.
And you know, and the basic thing that the district, their main function is treating wastewater, protecting our water supply, managing flooding, and monitoring pollution. But the major portion of what the district does at the district is treating wastewater. Correct. That's where the bulk of our money, and that's why it's so important that we have to upgrade those 3 plants because of the compliance, or the U.S. EPA or Illinois EPA may put us in compliance to whatever they're going to decide to do, and that's very important.
That's correct.
That's why we have a master plan to put in place every year what we're going to construct, and that's what the master plan is telling us.
Right. Yeah. That's correct, Frank. And as I said, these are our 3 oldest plants. That's why we put them through the master planning process first. Now, we have 3 more plants in the northwest part of Cook County that are younger. They were built in the 70s and 80s. One plant is a little older. That's out in Hanover Park. We're beginning to do a master plan on that this year, and so we'll be having some construction projects out there down the road to ensure that that plant is kept up to date. Now, after this, you know, we'll have to go back and look at those other 2 younger plants because they'll be getting older. So,
yes. Now, in the master plan, does that include looking at the future about nutrient removal or phosphorus removal, or you know, because we always look ahead, and what are we doing in that regards?
We've considered that in the master plans. At the present time, there's no regulations or water quality standards for nutrients, so we haven't costed out those and included those in the financing program. Okay. But we have looked at them from an engineering point of view, and to be sure that we have adequate space for those facilities should they need to be built at our treatment plants.
Now, did the state pass a statute about regulating the amount of phosphate that detergent manufacturers could use in their detergent?
Yes.
And that's a statute now?
This is on the books now. It goes into effect in 2010.
In 2010?
To limit the amount of phosphate in the automatic dishwashing compounds. There's already a limit on laundry products and so forth, and most cleaning compounds have a limit on the phosphorus content, so the automatic dishwashing compounds are the last ones to be limited.
And that may have an effect on our plants too, because they may require us to limit the amount of phosphorus, treat phosphorus coming to our plant, and that will have a reduction on it. Now, what are some of the research projects that we're doing? Because our capital improvement program, we talk about a capital improvement program, but we have an excellent research department, and that's looking toward the future too. And so what are some of the research projects that we're doing now, anticipating in the future?
Well, we are looking at methods of treating nutrients to remove nutrients, to find low-cost and effective methods for control of those 2, nitrogen and phosphorus, those 2 pollutants. We're also doing research on the beneficial use of our biosolids as a soil amendment and fertilizer. We're looking at the issues surrounding emerging contaminants, pesticides, household products, personal care products, endocrine disruptors, how people should properly dispose of unused pharmaceuticals, medications. We're looking at issues regarding odors at our treatment plants and how best to control odors. So we have a lot of research going ahead.
You mentioned biosolids. Everyone is concerned about the quality of water, and yet biosolids is starting to take a concern with the government, with the U.S. EPA, and they may put some requirement on biosolids now.
Well, as a matter of fact, there are some limits on biosolids. They were implemented by the EPA back in 1993, and we are fully in compliance with those requirements. And all of our biosolids are recycled to the land. Most of them are used in agriculture, on farmland in northeast Illinois. Some of them are used to close landfills. Some of them are used to build golf courses, to do an annual soil amendment for parks and recreation areas and athletic fields. So it's a very beneficial product.
Oh yes, yes, and biosolids. Every day, I forgot how many tons of biosolids we have, but it must be about 500 tons a day or that we ship out.
You're right on the money, right?
right on the money. Yeah, and so it's we have to consider on placing these biosolids someplace.
Sure. Yeah. And we're just putting online a plant to make pellets out of our biosolids, and that's another way that we can market this product. It could be bagged, it can go in bulk, used in agricultural applications.
Now, have the district decided on a name for that pellet?
Well, no, we haven't yet.
No. Now, can you explain to me the source of revenue for the annual Water Reclamation District budget?
Sure, and we've got a graphic here I'd like to show for that. And as I said, all of our revenue comes from the real estate taxes, but this graphic shows our total budget, which for 2008 totals $1.3 billion.
And that's the largest budget so far that the district has.
Yes, that's our biggest budget so far. And of course, we don't raise all of that money from taxes. As shown here by this graphic, the largest share comes from the state revolving fund loans and our bond sales to finance construction. That's the segment of the dollar over here on the left-hand side. The next segment is the what we call the net assets appropriable. That's the funds that are left over from one year that are carried over to the next year. And the third segment is for the net tax sources. That's what people will see on their tax bills each year. And then
no, the taxes has the taxes stayed the same? Well, we'll get into that later on.
Yeah, our tax rate has been pretty stable over the years.
Yeah, because we have a very efficient operation at the Water Reclamation District.
I think we do.
I think at the district we have qualified people, concerned people. They're one thing I like about the employees at the district, they're concerned about the environment. And
that's our job.
And that's it. You're right. You're right. And this is why it's we have very fine disciplines of every type of discipline, from the trades to the engineers to the scientists to the accountants to the lawyers. Everyone is concerned about keeping the environment safe.
Right, right. Well, we didn't quite finish that graphic, but we got through most of the.
Well, no, we'll bring it up again.
Okay. Well, the last three wedges here were our user charge income, which amounts to about $50 million a year. This is from large industries and from tax-exempt institutions, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, because the district owns a lot of property.
And yes, and some of this is from rental of our property, some of this income.
Yeah. And when you say user charge, what do you mean by user charge?
Well, a user charge is required by the federal government, the EPA. It's a charge to make it sure that there's an equivalent charge on industry if they use a lot of water, so that the homeowner isn't supporting the industry. So we have a mechanism, and there's about 300 or 400 large industries that pay user charges to the district, along with the hospitals and water treatment plants and the airports and so forth. And then we have some investment income on this graphic, and the last slice on the end is the miscellaneous income from land rentals and sewer permit fees and scrap sale of salvage materials.
And that's about the $1.3 billion.
And that's totals $1.3 billion.
And now, since we receive all this money, we have all this $1.3 billion, but it's not all at the same time.
Right.
How is that revenue spent?
Well, where it goes,
it has to go out.
Yeah, we got another graphic to show that.
Okay.
And this one, the largest segment, again, about half of it is for design and construction.
Design and construction.
That's for the Capital Works program, all costs related to the design of a project and its construction, and the administration of the construction contracts. That's all considered a capital improvement. That's paid for out of our budget, and that's more than half of this $1.3 billion. Then the next segment here is for operation and maintenance of our plants, and the next segment is about 10% of that total, which is for staff services. That's employee benefits and support services by the departments.
So under maintenance and operation, that's the second largest revenue that's spent.
Yes.
There. And would you say that those two items, construction and engineering and maintenance and operation, we have 2,100 employees. Would you say the majority of the employees are within those two departments then?
Yes, the majority. About half of our employees are in the operation and maintenance of our plants.
Yeah. And both departments have to work closely together.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the engineering department and the maintenance department has to tell the engineering department what they need.
Right.
And then the engineering department has to design it. So they must have weekly meetings or meet a couple times a month to discuss their issues, their concerns. And
well, we for the capital improvement program, there's a once per year get-together where they decide on what projects should be in next year's program.
Yes.
But there is much more frequent communication on any particular project to get the design completed and reviewed and so forth, and as well as to deal with problems that come up during the year that were not expected, where the engineering department has to assist the operating department in implementing a repair and so forth. Sometimes you'll have an emergency that'll be caused by a collapsed sewer and a street cave-in or something like that. So there's a lot of collaboration between the departments. And we also have here bond redemption and interest for refunding our bonds, and the other minor amounts of this dollar over to the right are for...
And that's the third slice there. Up on the screen?
That's the fourth slice.
Fourth slice
yes,
up?
Right.
Okay.
And then we have our claims and judgments. You know, we have accidents we have to pay for. We have contaminated sites that we have to pay for, remediation. Sometimes people like to sue us, so we have to pay those claims. And then the next wedge is for stormwater management. That's a new program.
Stormwater management?
Came into our budget a couple years ago, and we're now busy preparing detailed watershed plans for all of Cook County.
And that was passed in Springfield?
Yes.
Right? It was passed in Springfield?
Yeah, that granting authority to the district for stormwater management for all of Cook County. And then...
and so because of stormwater management, did the district have to set up a whole new department?
Well,
or did they have people in place already because they were already doing some type of stormwater management?
Well, we've done flood control work in the past, and that program has been somewhat inactive recently, except for the operation of the facilities that we built some years ago. But this new authority that was granted to us by the General Assembly in 2004 requires us to implement a regulatory program for stormwater, and also to develop these detailed watershed plans so we know we can pinpoint where all the problems are, and we can define what solutions are necessary to resolve those problems and estimate what costs are for facilities to solve those problems. And along with this authority, the General Assembly granted us a $50 million annual fund limit to spend for stormwater management. So we're not spending quite that amount yet because we're not building any projects yet, but we're still in the planning stage.
And stormwater management, you know, it takes time to have a plan because we have to study that watershed.
Right.
And we must have about 5 watersheds here in Cook County.
Actually, we have 6.
6?
And with the possibility of a 7th one, and that would be the city of Chicago.
City of Chicago?
Yes.
Well, their combined sewer overflow.
For the combined sewer area.
Watershed, yes.
Right.
There. Now, do we have more to discuss on where the revenue goes?
Well, just the last 2 slices of the dollar bill were for our retirement fund.
Retirement fund?
Because, you know,
we
have these great employees you mentioned, Frank,
yes.
and we want to give them a well-deserved retirement, yes. So we have a nice fund for that. And then the last is for our research and development program, which you mentioned earlier, yes. We talked about earlier, is a significant part of our effort.
Now, Dick, why do you think research is so important in our industry?
Well, there's always new problems that show up. I talked about the emerging contaminants. Yes. These were contaminants that weren't even on the radar screen 10, 15 years ago. And you have to be prepared for these. We also have to look at treatment processes that are more efficient and less costly. So you need to have research.
I wholly agree. I think we're just completing a research building in Calumet plant.
Yes.
That will probably be completed at the end of this year.
That's right. That's our laboratory.
Laboratory, yes. Right.
Most of our research is done at our large laboratory out at the Stickney plant.
Now, we have a new facility there. Don't we have a research building there? Or?
Well, it's that facility was originally built in the mid-'60s, and it's been expanded a couple times over the years. The last expansion was probably 15 years, 20 years ago. So we need some newer facilities there also.
And also we're buying newer equipment to detect the low level.
For the laboratory.
Yeah, for the laboratory.
Correct.
And comparing our agency with all the other agencies throughout the United States, or maybe throughout the world, we're one of the few that does have a research department. And so probably the whole, they look to us in the water industry to look at our research.
Well, you're right, Frank. We are unique in that we do have this research and development department and have this capability, and partly that's because of our size. We can afford it, and the other issue is that we've had this for many years. It's kind of a tradition in our shop, and we work closely with other wastewater agencies. The wastewater industry has a foundation called the Water Environment Research Foundation, which annually funds a lot of research work. So we learn a lot from that program, and that benefits us, and we participate in that program so that they benefit from our experience also.
Now, how much is appropriated for salaries of Water Reclamation District employees?
Our salaries for all employees in all of our programs totals about $153 million. That's
153, and our budget is 1.3.
1.3 billion.
So it's a little over 10%, 11, 12%.
Right. And that's in addition to our salaries, we have fringe benefits for health care and also a retirement fund. So we take good care of our employees.
Yes, and you know, and our employees consist of different type of disciplines. We're a wastewater plant, a water reclamation plant, and so we do hire a lot of engineers. I probably civil, mechanical, electrical, any type of engineer that you could think of is employed at the district. Well, what other type of employees do we have?
Well, the research department has a variety of skills. We have chemists, we have biologists, we have microbiologists, we have a radiation chemist, we have soil scientists. So I think I've covered most of them.
So we have scientists and engineers on one end, and then we have the trade people, and they're all pipe fitters, plumbers, electrical, painters, machinists, any type of trade that you could think of is employed at the district.
That's right. We have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of mechanical and electrical equipment to maintain. So we need the expertise of the engineers and the tradespeople.
And the tradespeople.
To make it work.
And besides, because we mentioned that we got 12% of the revenue goes towards salaries of employees, so that's on the trade and scientists and engineers. And on the other end, as you mentioned, we need lawyers. We have a law department. We need accountants. What else? I mean, we're just like a small town that has a budget of $1.3 billion.
Sure.
That employs every type of discipline to keep us in operation.
That's right. And we have a personnel operation with personnel specialists and information technology.
Yes.
We all depend on computers, so we have a large staff of people to keep our computer systems up to date. And we have a lot of work to do.
Oh, yes. Now, what is the biggest cost for operating service in the Water Reclamation District budget?
Well, Frank, moving as much water as we do, you can imagine that our biggest cost for service is for energy.
Now, moving water, how much water do we move?
Well, we treat an average of 1.4 billion gallons per day.
1.3, and because our collection system throughout Cook County, you mentioned that we're underground, unnoticed.
That's right.
But we have a large collection system. When people get up in the morning, they eat, they wash they take a bath, or all that water is going down into the local sewers, and it comes into our interceptor source. So a mass amount of water is occurring during the day. And
that's right, and it takes a lot of energy to move that water. We've been very successful over the years in managing our consumption of energy, and we've got a graphic to show this. Electrical energy, next year we estimate we'll spend about $38 million.
$38 million?
For electrical energy. That's a big electric bill. Yeah. And about $4 million for gas.
$4 million for gas.
Right. Now, we also generate methane in our digesters.
Yes.
So we use a lot of that. 1/3 of our total energy demand is from digester gas. So we're saving a big chunk of money by being able to generate methane and use it in operating our treatment plants.
That's excellent. And we started an energy policy too.
Yes, we did that.
That's going to go into operation in 2008 now.
Right. And this graphic shows our record on holding the cost of energy. The pig part on the bottom is the electricity. Then there's a thin blue band of representing natural gas on top of that. So you can see that's relatively flat, whereas the consumer price index has continually risen over the years. So at the very left-hand side there, or right-hand side, you'll see that bump up. That's because, you know, the state of Illinois, in its wisdom, deregulated energy.
Deregulated, yes.
And so now the cost goes up. So we've seen an increase in our electric and gas bills in the last year or two.
And we're going to end our 3-year contract that we had in buying electricity, and now we're out there looking again.
Yes. Yeah.
And
we have to go on the market and buy electricity.
And then we also produce electricity, don't we, at the Lockport plant?
We do. We have a hydroelectric plant there, and the flow in the canal. We have about a 38-foot drop in water level. We're able to generate electricity with our hydroelectric turbines. That's a small amount, but it helps. But under deregulation, it doesn't have as much value as it used to have.
And that's why a lot of our interceptors are gravity fed, and we have pumping stations throughout the county to pump. Now, Dick, by spending all this money, you mentioned we have $1.3 billion. we're spending. We have all these different departments. Majority of our money is in engineering and construction and maintenance and operation. What is it to the cost of the homeowner? How much of the homeowner has to pay for all of this, sir?
Well, as I indicated, we derive our funds from the property tax, and a homeowner with a home with a market value of about $100,000 pays $130.79. That's our estimate for 2008. Now, if the homeowner lives in a $200,000 home, well, then it's double that.
Yes.
So this is what the cost is for the homeowner.
And so a homeowner, let's $100,000, he pays $130.
Right.
Which is a reasonable dollar amount to spend.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes, to keep our environment safe and to keep them healthy.
Right.
Because, you know, they say life is water and water is life, and we have to make our quality water such that is not harmful to the environment.
That's right.
And a person is, as you mentioned, what, a $200,000 house is double. So
it would be double that, yes.
Double that.
Right.
You know, I'm just wondering, is this what a homeowner here in Cook County pays? Do you have any comparison of other cities, what they're paying as compared to the Chicagoland area?
Well, I do, and this last graphic here will show how we've compared with other cities. We don't have this on a per homeowner basis, but we look at the cost of treating 1 million gallons.
A million gallons?
Right. And for us, it's about $531.
$531?
To treat 1 million gallons. And we happen to be the lowest of all the major cities in the United States. And that's probably because of our size.
Yes.
And this graphic shows the next to be our neighbor to the north, Milwaukee, at $728. On down Cleveland, New York, St. Louis, Phoenix, Boston. Folks on the West Coast, Los Angeles, pay $1,200, almost $1,300. Philadelphia is over $1,300. So I think the folks in Cook County get a real bargain for their wastewater treatment services.
Now, is there any explanation why our cost is a little over $500 as compared to California, which is double over double?
Well, part of that is our system is large, and there's economies of scale because of our large plants. Other areas, we also have flat topography, and the sewer system uses gravity to carry most of the flow. And some of the other cities, we have a more variable topography. There's more pumping costs involved. It may depend upon local regulations, may require a higher degree of treatment, so that might account for some of the
by
costs.
local, you mean the state?
Yes.
Yeah, because we're covered. Everyone follows the U.S. EPA, their recommendation, and then the states implement what they recommend. And so each state may, if they have stricter regulations, I thought they use the U.S. EPA ruling.
Well, under the Clean Water Act, a state can implement more stringent regulations.
More stringent?
Than the federal standards. But most states follow the federal criteria. So
now, Dick, there is talk about wetlands. Everyone is concerned about chemicals using to treat our wastewater, and they say that maybe wetlands doesn't have any type of chemicals in it, and that's the best way to go. What is the district doing now for wetlands? And explain what wetland does.
Well, a wetland is an area where water is on the surface of the land for a considerable length of time, and the plant ecology develops with hydric soils, meaning water-bearing soils. And it's known that a wetland treats water that's in there because of the biologic action in the wetland. sometimes wetlands are referred to as nature's kidneys.
Yes,
Now,
cleans everything out. Yes.
Right. We're looking at wetlands as a form of low-cost treatment for nutrients because wetlands are known to remove phosphorus by microbiologic action, converting the nitrates in water to nitrogen gas, which then purges to the atmosphere. And the phosphorus is sequestered in the roots of the aquatic vegetation. So we are looking at using wetlands to control the nutrient problems. Now, we don't have a lot of wetlands in the Chicago area. You know, we built everything up here. So we're looking at some large projects down along the Illinois River to test out the suitability of this type of technology. But there are some opportunities locally, so we have a couple of small...
On a small scale.
Yeah, we have a couple of small projects in the Lamont and Lockport area, and we're also working with the City of Chicago to improve the wetlands around Lake Calumet. And this project would, being in the city, would be quite a remarkable endeavor. Improve recreational opportunities and the conservation of natural areas right here in Chicago.
You know, what other projects have the district started? We started a rain barrel. Buying, you know, everyone is concerned about the supply of water and how to conserve water. So what is the district doing in that respect?
Well, our interest there is in finding ways to for reuse of our wastewater effluent. We do use our processed water in our plants quite a bit for cooling purposes and so forth, and we sell some of our effluent to park districts for irrigation. But in the Chicago area, potable water is relatively inexpensive, so there isn't the economic driver for reuse of a large amount of our effluent, but we are looking at opportunities for that. Water conservation is an important subject.
Yes.
It's primarily a concern of the cities that provide water to their customers. It's not so much a concern of ours as the people that deal with wastewater. But in our stormwater program, we want to look at opportunities for infiltrating water into the ground, and that's a form of water conservation because some of this water, if it's close to the lake, goes back to the lake.
Yes.
That benefits lake diversion. If it's in other areas, it might supplement local groundwater sources for shallow well aquifers. And now you mentioned rain barrels.
Yes, rain barrels,
we have a rain barrel program where people can buy rain barrels. There's an application on our website. And you can install this in your home to catch the water off your roof and your downspouts and store it and then use it later to irrigate your garden. And we would encourage homeowners to install a rain garden to provide additional opportunities to infiltrate stormwater into the ground in their yard, to use native vegetation that will have deep root systems and increase the rates of infiltration. And municipalities can utilize these types of practices in street design to capture more runoff from the streets and infiltrate it into the ground along the street right away, rather than just put it in a storm sewer and get it out of there.
Yeah, you mentioned, you know, we have the authority for stormwater management, and we're writing up an ordinance, a stormwater ordinance now. And the municipalities, if they have one in place which has a higher criteria than ours, that's okay. But if the municipalities has a lower criteria, then they have to bring it up to our criteria. But we cannot regulate them on how to conserve water or have them. We could suggest or maybe mention to them that they could have impermeable pavement, but that's not our authority.
Well. we'll see. We're still in the development stages for our ordinance, and since most of the areas within Cook County are already developed,
yeah, they're all developed.
we have limited opportunities. But I think for any new developments or any major redevelopments, we would attempt to achieve what we call conservation design in the design of these developments, so that we retain as much stormwater on site as possible. I think this is a feasible undertaking. It's quite popular in the surrounding counties that are now in the developing stage. You know, where you are converting farmland to residential subdivisions or industrial parks.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Cook County is flat. We're built up. We got a lot of pavement. When it rains, all that storm water comes into our collection system, and it goes into our sewage treatment plant. And so it's going to be a large undertaking to educate the people, because they've been doing things for 50 years to 60 years. Now a change is coming over them now.
Right.
And I think this is where the public affairs department at the district is doing a good job now. And I think the public is going to be more aware of the water reclamation district, because not on treating wastewater, but on stormwater management.
Right, right. Now let me just make a comment on something you said, Frank, about stormwater.
Yeah.
The combined sewer system is designed for stormwater. The separate sewage system out in the suburbs isn't designed for stormwater. So we don't want stormwater getting into the separate sewage systems.
Okay.
And some of our municipalities in the suburbs face a continuing challenge to maintain their local collection systems so that it doesn't take in a lot of storm flow through any illegal connections or leaky sewers.
Yes.
Because if that does, then it overloads the system and you get basement backups, and you don't want to do that. So we need to work with these municipalities to assure that their collection systems are up to date and don't allow stormwater.
Yeah, that's true, because we have two types of collection system. They think that the deep tunnel handles all of the flooding from the Cook County, but that's not so. The deep tunnel only handles the combined sewer areas.
That's correct.
Whereas your outline area, you got separate, storm and sanitary. And that's why we help those outlying communities with reservoirs. I think there are about 35 online right now on reservoirs.
That's right.
Which is helping this flood control.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Yeah, most of these reservoirs were built back in the 70s and 80s, and they're serving their purpose, doing quite well.
Well, we're doing it looks like the district is doing an excellent job for the residents of Cook County. If they own a $100,000 home, they have to pay $130,000 in tax. If they own a $200,000 home, it's double that. If it's $300,000,